back to our diploma in integrative medicine and learning about holistic consulting.
Hmm.
And I'm really being drawn again to that topic because I'm seeing so many doctors, GPs, or practitioners, people recognizing the power of creating a healing space.
Hmm.
It particularly comes up because people are using AI more or finding information sources alone. But what are the extra benefits of actually working with someone in a one-to-one context or in a group? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. In integrative medicine, we learn about the healing container. I think that's in one of Raquel's books, and the therapeutic relationship, and all of that stuff. I feel is so central to someone feeling held and supported with all the complexity and messiness of their, what they're going through with their health. Um, yeah, like you say, if we're moving in the direction where the informational side of health and maybe the protocol side of health can all be sort of held by AI and um, provided by AI, then what does that leave? I think it just leaves the human connection. And in a health context, yeah, how should that human um, be delivered?
It's interesting you use that word connection because I've for me, obviously, I'm really pro the root cause approach. So actually asking why, bringing curiosity to what we're experiencing rather than just jumping straight on it to remove it with a pill. And when I keep asking that question, like why, no matter what it is someone is coming to me with, it often does come back to a disconnect somehow. Something has lost connection, whether that's the loss of connection of the hormonal systems talking to each other or cells talking
Hmm.
to each other, or on a wider level. So the loss of connection with where our food's coming from or the isolation that's expanding since the pandemic. So I think this is such an important root cause. So how can we create these containers which really allow us to reconnect?
Yeah, I think we have to model that connection and be a source of connection for someone. So the way I see my job when I'm supporting someone is to connect with them and as best as I can through listening, through being completely present in my body, and through kind of allowing permission for anything, for them to say anything about themselves and their life that they want to say, and for that to be received by me and acknowledged and seen. It's almost like all these strands of their life that they're living when I'm not with them or when any practitioner isn't with them, all these strands are being woven back together in one kind of conversation. And that's kind of for me like a reconnection. Because often, if someone goes for a health consultation, they might think they're just going to talk about health, and the practitioner might think, I just need to focus on the kind of what I associate with health. But
Mm,
actually, we know that health is created in someone's life, and the story of someone's life is basically the story of their health because every single thing they've done has contributed to causing health or causing disease. So it's about just picking up anything that someone says about, their symptoms, yeah, but also their relationships, their what they've done, their job, how they feel about stuff, what they're struggling with, what they really care about, and helping to kind of almost crystallize some of that information they're giving us into kind of how it could be leading them towards health or leading them towards, sickness.
mm.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, and the more present we can be, or I can be, I think the better we can do that. Otherwise, they're withholding. I think if you're having a consultation with someone, they could be withholding stuff about their life that they might not think is important. But I think everything's important in
Mm.
that conversation.
And or I often say just to have that trust that the right thing will come up because people can
Yeah.
often say things and they're like, oh, I feel like I'm rambling. Like, is this even significant? But I'm like,
Hmm.
No, I'm so impressed. You've just given me like the most essential distilled information of really helping me to see all the different factors that are weaving into how the way you're feeling. I've noticed quite a few people express to me that they recognize, oh, this is a very safe space. Um,
Yeah.
like I wouldn't be happy to share this normally. So I'm interested
Hmm.
in what creates that safety. And I think a lot of it is around one, the presence that you mentioned.
Hmm.
And it just
Yeah.
really creates this ability for people to relax and how you are in your own body, that co-regulation. If we're able to really feel settled in our nervous systems, then that helps through that sort of contagion of emotion affects mirror neurons to the other person to feel at ease as well. And then I wonder the influence of us having been through our own health journeys. It's almost like we've walked that path ourselves. So that opens up something in others to realize, okay, actually, I recognize something in you that knows where I'm at or has have been through similar struggles.
Yeah, 100%. I think to think of it like ingredients of a cake, isn't it? It's like what ingredients make a good cake? What ingredients create a really nice, safe container for someone to have that health creation conversation that they want to have? Um, and like you say, I've had that experience where patients have or clients have said, "Oh, I feel like I'm sharing more. I feel like I'm going on and on and on and talking too much, or I feel like I'm," or they might say, "I've never shared this with anyone, what I've just told you." Or and so that's kind of like signals to us that we are creating safety. And yeah, so what are those ingredients? I agree. I think it's how well regulated you are as a practitioner and on that particular day, but just on the whole as well, and how grounded you're feeling and um, how purposeful you're feeling, how much you care about what you're doing and care about that person in front of you. I think the environment you're both sat in is important. I think the boundaries and the sort of time management container is important as well. So the person knows if someone knows, oh, we've got an hour, then maybe they will just feel relaxed about opening up because they won't feel like they're taking our time. Um, things like that. Are there any other ingredients that you think create that container?
Yeah, I love that. It's reminding me of Raquel's work again, is
Yeah.
the idea of the ritual of going somewhere for healing. And I sometimes even suggest that. So if there's a particular ornament or a plant or something just to bring out so that the body recognizes, okay, now this is my time to go into that healing space. But then I
Uh,
also wonder how can we bring that container outside of the one-to-one consult? Because I do also sometimes note that people say, oh, well, I feel really relaxed here. I'm in that healing space. I made some big insights, and it's like I can't connect with that space on my own. So a lot of what I
mm,
think we really try to do at True Health is empowering people to increasingly take that container with them and recognize they can create it for themselves. So I think that's a lot of these same ingredients that you're touching on, but often it's a process of actually having to learn how to do that for yourself. So the wonder of our imaginations can be so incredible. And I know actually even when I've been with various therapists in the past, it's almost like you can start to have a little therapist in your head that can sort of guide you through things. Or for me right now, just making contact with a visualization of like a very loving presence, compassion, that self-kindness is so helpful to guide us through and allow our nervous systems to touch on that safety, which I think is the absolute foundation for healing. The more we can come back to that rest, regeneration, repair, as opposed to what a lot of people are in these days, that more fight, flight, draining up resources because we need to be hyper vigilant. What's going to come next? The body's tense. I think that makes such a big difference.
yeah, I love that idea of creating a container outside of a consultation because for many people they'll be going to see their doctor or a nutritionist or a holistic health coach or an acupuncturist, and like you say they'll be feeling that lovely safe space, therapeutic container, and that's kind of like less than 1% of their of their month, let's say. And so that's a great question. Like, how does someone create that almost that like guidance system for themselves, or that kind of invisible container for themselves when they're on their journey in their day-to-day life, living their daily routine at work and their relationships? Um, I mean, I just love that question. I just love
I'm
that. I
thinking
love
of
that.
you for yourself. You've got so many incredible healing tools. So what do you
Yeah.
bring into your life day to day that you find has the biggest impact for maintaining your health?
Well, I was just thinking, I was sort of thinking of it as internal and external. So the internal is that self-compassion. So I'm a big fan of self-compassion. I feel like just a short amount of self-compassion practice, whether it's a guided practice or a self-directed loving kindness practice that I do sometimes, it's about changing that internal state inside of me to be more to feel more spacious and loving and accepting of everything going on inside of me. And that just makes me more able to solve problems and take the edge off the fear and the anxiety of life. Um, Gratitude is another one that is creates that internal safe space. And then externally for me, it's creating routine and structure,
Mm.
which I'm constantly trying to work on. And I think boundaries and, just to create the guardrails in your life so that, you don't get distracted off into things that cause you harm or take you down the wrong path, or just, make you miss things and forget the important things you're supposed to be doing. And in terms of like sacred spaces, where can we go for healing? I mean, on a day to day, it's got to be nature. It's got to be just bare feet on the ground in the garden. But it could be for me, it could be the kitchen, just cooking and just really cleaning around, tidying around, getting the ingredients out, cooking a nourishing meal. And then on a sort of bigger level, I think of places like I think art galleries, museums. I think these spaces really are nice places or even like a nice cafe that's got a really nice interior, like a place where you can go and just feel held in society in a way that makes you feel relaxed and enjoying that environment. I think that's also a great place for healing. What about you?
Yeah, you're so right to touch on that importance of structure, which really resonates for me as well, because I love diversity and novelty and new
Yeah.
things. And yet, our bodies are built on rhythm. We've got our circadian rhythm, so many rhythms, and our monthly rhythms, and even annually, I think there's various shifts in hormones, with light levels and things like that. And our body does respond very well when there's a degree of that regularity and structure, because it can even prepare. If it knows that you're going to eat at the same time each day, it can get those digestive enzymes ready in response for that. I know at times when I've been very regular with my eating patterns, it's like it get to 11 o'clock and the body, no, I don't know why it was 11 o'clock. Oh, I was fasting at the time. So it was like that 11 o'clock and the body's just so ready with that digestive fire up and ready to go. And as well, for me, the morning routines, I've come and go with them. I actually had the most perfect morning this morning, like going outside, having that barefoot on the ground to begin the day with some gentle movement and the sun shining, and then uh, having my matcha. I think that ritual of some sort of drink in the morning is so popular, isn't it? And then the self-care activities, and then for me, the meditation just is a really wonderful way to set me up for the rest of the day. And that, I suppose, that very much is my healing space, the, as you say, the internal healing space of at least keeping a portion of my awareness of what's going on in my body. And then externally, I think that's something I'm drawn to now in terms of being in this boat, which is still a little bit of a building site. I'm still halfway through painting, and my husband's occasionally building various new bits of the kitchen. So it's how to actually, it's basically how does it make me feel to see this? Because sometimes actually I can position the paints in such a way that it inspires my creativity and my joy for what I'm doing, but at other times it can just feel cluttered and messy.
Mm. Yeah, and what's coming up for me when you're talking about that, all those amazing, lovely things which you and I sort of have learned about through partly through necessity, through our own stories of overcoming health challenges and then being inspired to be more interested in health and then studying and that's great. And I feel there's something else. I feel so much of what you just described and maybe what I described as well, so much of it sounds like protocols and kind of you just need to do this, go there, do that. And I feel like that's what a lot of the health and wellness rhetoric is all about. And I'm kind of interested in something deeper than that, which is that when someone's on their own, because like what you describe and what I describe is like the end product of all of our searching and experimenting and learning and suffering. That's kind of like the end product is we do this, we do that, X, Y, and Z, and then we feel good. But what's the kind of journey before that or beneath that, which is the deeper kind of someone on their own going, shit, should I do this? Should I do that? How do I spend an hour doing this thing that I want to try when I also want to try this? Or I want to try this class, but there isn't one in my area, or do I trust this person because they're saying something different about nutrition to this person? I feel like there's that more like messy, dark journey that
Mm,
people go on
absolutely.
alone.
Yeah, I was feeling even like this sort of
Yeah.
anger coming up because it was like I want to tear down those like morning routine lists. Just that is what that's probably why I don't always keep it up. If it's at all starts to feel as like this list of things I have to do, that's very draining on my energy as opposed to something like
Mm,
I really want to give myself. Like I'm doing this for my body. I know that it's going to support the whole rest of my day. And also
hmm
for me, what came up was just being well, a big part of my personal journey to where I am now is becoming more heart led and
hmm
actually tuning in with my body and what it needs in that moment. Because you're so right. It's so easy to listen to like, oh, Dr. Sally does this, this, and this, and she's looking healthy enough. So I'm going to try that. But actually, it's like reconnecting with our own bodies and intuitive guidance to see what's right for us. And
Yeah.
things that I'm just really cool towards. Sometimes I just know, like the other day, I just knew going outside and getting in the river was just going to blow me open. I was just like, oh, yes, this is incredible. So yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
did it? Did you feel good?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And because there's, I think that's what's so wonderful about what we do with integrative medicine is, as I said, like we now have just this such a wide variety of different medicines, which is what we
Yeah.
describe on True Health. It's
Yeah.
giving people all these different options and then supporting people to actually find, okay, what's the right one to use in this moment? Because it's not always the same one. It changes depending on the person, depending on the day, your mood, energy state. So yeah, I'm really interested to dive more into your journey and how have you managed to find that discernment of what's the right thing in the moment to really bring you back into health, better energetic state, emotional balance.
Well, I'm still on that journey, and I think
Yes,
it,
that's aren't we all? And we always
yeah,
we always will be. But in terms of being maybe a few steps ahead of,
yeah.
yeah.
I think what's so important and what I hear with clients is they might say something like, "Oh, I tried this thing and I was really diligent at doing this daily practice or this new protocol or taking this supplement for 3 months, and then it just faded out and I stopped doing it." And I think what I've learned for myself is why that might be is because it's so important to understand why you're doing something and to not just do it because an expert has told you to do it, but to do it because, well, at least, so my journey through sort of trying to fix chronic pain, let's say, to put it bluntly, was I realized I had to take information on faith that seemed interesting to me, let's say meditation, um, see it as an experiment, like try it, um, which takes courage because, to try meditation, I mean, the Dalai Lama says something like, try it for 10 years and then see how you go, see how you're doing. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've got plenty of those
so
decades to try different things and see what works.
yeah, but like let's take meditation as an example. Like if you're really struggling with chronic pain or something where you're really desperate to get some relief, trying something like meditation to get any benefit, you're going to want to do it properly. You're going to want to do it every day at the same time in quite a disciplined way. And I know that sounds quite strict and potentially hard on yourself, but actually that's how I went for it anyway. So I tried it and it was scary because I thought like, what is this? Is it even helping? Is it doing anything? But then by the end of it, it was. So naturally, I kind of stuck with it and I went back to it. But I didn't kind of carry on doing it blindly just because, someone said to me, "Oh, you should do this." It is then becomes that relationship of listening to your own body and thinking, is this still working for me? Is there more I want to learn about this? And then becoming your own project manager, your own leader of your health, and being like, okay, I've got this tool, meditation. I started off doing it every day for an hour. Is that still the dose that I need right now, or do I need to shift that? Do I need to, because of my other aspects of my life, or do I want to learn more about a different type of meditation? So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's something about really understanding what it's about, learning the depth of it, or why it's important. It's like anxiety. It's kind of like anxiety. There's so many protocols for like do this to reduce anxiety, but like I think understanding anxiety and how it is manifested is also so important because then if you understand that, you understand how the thing that helps it kind of works. And then that's more empowering and more motivating to keep doing something. So it's all about kind of shifting into that mindset of just learning about yourself, your body, this container, how it works, and rather than just looking for someone to tell you what to do, because it won't, in my experience, it just doesn't stick. If it doesn't connect, again, it's that connection thing. If it doesn't connect with you and make sense, and you don't really understand why you're doing something, then you won't keep doing it. I don't know if you've had a similar.
In my experience, definitely speaking about that, returning to something and having a bit of discipline. But I did want to at least feel some benefit quite quickly, which things, for example,
Yeah.
like meditation, alcohol, reducing alcohol were big ones for me. Doing it at least for a month and then feeling how good it was. And yes, I absolutely went back into the familiar and conditioned patterns of before of not meditating or going out and partying and drinking in late nights, which nothing against that, but I could
Yeah.
definitely see that it was having its toll on me. And it became effortless. It didn't require any willpower because I just kept coming back to it. And every time I did, I would feel so obviously better in myself and everything across the board
Mm.
that eventually it just became my identity. It's who I was because my body recognized this is actually feeling so much better. I think sometimes when we're given something that we
Mm.
don't understand, we don't know why we're taking supplements, we've been told to do it, we're relying on an excess of sort of false will of I'm going to force myself into this. So it's like, how do we connect actually coming back to ourselves with a more sort of steadfast, I understand how this is helping me. I understand what I'm going
Mm.
through, and the holistic consulting really supports that. So, speaking of like we did at the start of how everything is interconnected, and really helping people understand the full timeline of their health, which can sometimes people don't even realize, make the connection. So for example, they've bought a new car and been exposed to lots of new toxins and then suddenly develop palpitations or something. And actually it's going through that process and asking yourself what was happening in the months before those symptoms developed and how might they be contributing. And that requires sometimes a little bit of expertise to realize that, for example, that you are exposing yourself to chemicals with a new car, or the role of various other what we call trigger factors, isn't it? Do we use ATMs in functional medicine? So antecedents, like what sets you up in your genetics or your early environment to be predisposed to something. Triggers, which is often that trigger event, like a big stress or an infection. And then the mediators are the things which continue to perpetuate it. It's just helpful to ask that question why, I guess, and keep asking, why is it that I have this belly pain? And then maybe you
Yeah.
realize, oh, actually, okay, it always happens when I'm faced with something related to this particular person. And then you can even inquire deeper into that of what's going on. Why is it that that shows up in that way? How is everything? What are those threads that you mentioned? How can I start weaving them together to better understand? And that helps us to better identify that medicine that's going to be the most effective for us.
Yeah. I think what you said at the start there about we don't need will when something is good for us and it's a true medicine for us and we know it and we've tried and tested it, it doesn't require willpower.
Mm.
We just we just do it. Certain meditation teachers will sort of talk about a certain release that can happen where it's like an apple falling off a tree. It's like something you've been worrying about just falls away when it's ready. And it's kind of like when we're ready in our lives, we'll just automatically start doing the things that are good for us. And I think that message about not requiring willpower, I'm not saying that there aren't occasions where willpower is required, but I think that message about not requiring willpower and just trusting that you will do the things that are good for you kind of organically is a really clean message because often the message in the health world is like people can end up feeling bad about themselves because they're not trying hard enough or they've lost discipline or they've let something slip.
Oh,
Um,
tell me about it. That word trying,
so
when I hear it, there's just something so sticky for me. It just doesn't feel light and energizing and healthy.
yeah,
And whenever I hear people say that word should, like I should be doing this, I'm like, no, leave that. Just leave that
yeah,
right now.
yeah,
Because yeah, it just means you're swimming against the flow. And actually, in the long run, that's going to take us out of that sense of safety and ease and that's what I love about this idea of reflecting on the idea of true health and what that feels like. It very much is a state. So if something you're doing doesn't reflect that state, then how can that be supporting of how you want to feel if you're really having to drag yourself? But then at the same time, as we said, as you said, it often requires that discipline and that element of trust and overcoming barriers at the start, because a lot of the time we do need to do things that we really don't want to do, and particularly when there's change involved. And the more, as I said, that we do actually stick with that change, our body starts to recognize the benefits of it. For example, eating different foods, the microbiome composition changes, and you just start to like I not necessarily crave, but I would much rather eat now these foods which I know to be supportive. I've completely
mhm,
like I know I used to enjoy things like a Twix or chocolate, and that just doesn't appeal in the slightest now. So it
mm,
must
mm,
be something like a natural change in my physiology that's just uh sort of effort, like this is effortless effort, I
yeah,
think it's the word that's coming up. So yeah,
yeah.
what's your
I
experience?
think I think people really can benefit from hearing that message of yeah, don't try too hard. And in coaching, there's this idea of exploring ambivalence around behavior change, for example. So if they're smoking and they want to give up smoking, you might ask them, well, what are the benefits of smoking? Like, what do you love about it? Like, let's focus on smoking as a positive, which sounds counterintuitive, but you're starting with someone where they're at in their life. And what you're doing with that question is you're taking away the resistance. because resistance to the things that we do creates fogginess and lack of clarity and a kind of extra layer of suffering. So in everything we do, whether it's good or bad, if we can take away the resistance to it initially, we might be able to see, okay, we can see why we're doing it. So let's say we're smoking, we can come up with the answer that, yeah, well, I'm just smoking to manage stress. Okay, but we can then at least see smoking as a positive thing because we're trying to manage our stress. Um, and then that just creates a little bit of flow kind of towards our life rather than away from it in terms of like, oh, I just need to stop living my life in the way that I am living it and completely change it. And I'm not promoting smoking or anything like that, but
That kindness
it,
again, isn't it? It's a kindness
yeah,
to ourselves, of recognizing we're coping often with things that can be extremely challenging,
yeah,
and we've developed ways of doing that, which at the time were the best we had available. And it's just often that gentle shift towards something that at the same time, like that was the best we knew at the time, but maybe now we can step into something that is more skillful or more benefiting
yeah,
our overall health. But you're right, we absolutely need to understand why we were doing it in the first place. Something like smoking, it can often root back to like these deep childhood feelings of shame and guilt. And if someone comes to you and tells you you shouldn't be doing that, that's just going to increase that feeling of, oh yeah, I'm worthless, I can't do everything right, anything.
yeah.
And so you just feel like you have, you should just smoke more. Like, why should I do this for myself? And this extends to everything. Even, I mean, you mentioned smoking, but I think it extends widely even to things such as self-harm behaviors at every level. You can have that same compassion of, how is this serving me? What need
Yeah,
is it meeting? And
yeah.
is there a better way of meeting that need? Once we have that deeper self-knowledge, then we
And sometimes that question of is there a better way of meeting this need? Sometimes the answer to that question happens automatically, like you were saying about that not making any effort to do the right thing. If we simply reduce the resistance to what we consider to be a bad habit, if we reduce the resistance and look at it kindly, we're then in a different energy. We're kind of in a different emotional state. So then if we walk past something that is good for us that we might not normally notice, like a fruit bowl, for example, came to mind to use a classic example that eating fruit is good for you. Um, we might, because we're in that different space of not sort of beating ourselves up about the so-called bad things we're doing, we might then be more open to actually just automatically, organically receiving good nourishment. And then we just pick up an apple and we eat it, or we call up that friend and say, do you want to go for a walk? Just because we're in that different space. And then that's where I think those really nourishing things that we can do for ourselves start to happen without willpower, without kind of
yeah,
should
that
mentality.
principle is that removing the barriers. Like, how can I make this even more easy for myself? We often do know there's often that little voice that's like, oh, you should move your body more, and we know it in our hearts, but we really really
Yeah.
struggle to actually do it. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
how can I make this just like impossible for me not to? There's always that thing of like having your running gear ready in the morning so you can just get up and go. But for me, it's more about that sparking joy. Like, how could I make this really pleasurable for myself?
Hmm.
Like, in terms of my running habit, it's like, I'm going to put on music. I'm going to go somewhere where there's no one else around. So I know I can like dance and be with the
Hmm.
trees, and I'm just going to have an absolute ball. And yeah, that for me, that's the key barriers. It's like running. Oh, that sounds a little bit of a drag. So I have to make it fun for myself. Other people, it might be like a little treat or something afterwards. And as well, touching on in terms of my least favorite words, that like good and bad, like how much of that is there in the health world
Hmm.
that I see people,
Yeah.
it's particularly around food, which I really gently move people away from, because it's not serving us to be labeling foods as good or bad, because it changes so often. Foods that might be bad
Mm.
for 1 minute actually turn out to be okay in the end or can have benefits for us. And yet if we create that belief that something bad is going to affect our health, it's the nocebo effect. So the placebo being, I expect this thing to please me and benefit me. We label something bad, we know our physiology will actually respond to actually have a negative impact. So we say like, oh, pizza's bad, and then we inevitably end up eating it down the line. And actually, it could have been absolutely fine for us.
Mm.
Which reminds, I did that actually this morning for breakfast. I was in a bit of a rush and I couldn't cook myself something. And so I had something which I knew wasn't going to be great for me, which my husband already was criticizing me for. I bought some Weetabix, and so I took my Weetabix and I actually did a bit of a sort of ritual. I was like recognizing, okay, may this bring me health, may this bring me energy, and actually trying to change how my mind was perceiving it, because I could recognize I was being influenced by my husband. What's your thoughts on that? The idea of the role of belief and the mind,
Yeah.
how we can influence our physiology through our beliefs.
If you take the food example, you've got the food and then you've got the person that's eating the food. And I think this just taps into so much of what integrative healthcare is about and maybe looking at health more holistically. And I think I think n not a lot of people think about health in this way. And also bringing in that theme of containers that we were talking about. It's like if your life is a container for your health, and at a mealtime in that container, you've got the food that you're eating, and you've also got your state of mind. And to think that your state of mind is actually having an impact on how well that food's going to be digested and what nutrients you're going to take from it. I think that that can blow people's minds. I think a lot of people just think, like you said, the food is either good or bad, and the good food's gonna nourish me, and the bad food's gonna make me feel bad. And you've just described that. And I think, there probably is some science that backs this up that I don't know about. But well, it's the placebo stuff, isn't it? That your thoughts, your state of mind, your state of breathing, the people you're with, maybe the occasion, the ceremony, is all going to affect how something is taken into our body and digested. And I think it's just a wonderful thing to reflect on.
For me, it goes back to that having knowledge about how something's beneficial for you. It's not that it's good, it's just knowing, okay, these are the things that it can do and give me, and these are the potential things that
Mm,
might harm me, because it's so many of these foods like lectins, oxalates, gluten. It's not that it's bad for everyone, it's just for certain people at certain times that may not be the optimal choice.
yeah.
When we understand all this and we understand why particular foods may be healing or medicinal, so even if someone
Hmm.
has, like, I'm like, oh, wow, gosh, that's going to be really great for your health and your healing needs. I'll sometimes even give them resources so they can go deeper on understanding why that's the case, because I
Yeah.
really do believe it can increase that placebo effect even more if you know the principles of the rainbow diet or the Mediterranean diet.
Mm,
From my own experience, having spent
okay.
now a decade learning the science
Yeah.
of all these foods, every time I take a bite, I
Yeah.
know my mind is just
Yeah.
subconsciously it's churning over all these scientific pathways of all this gene complex
Yeah.
is going to be activated, and like, how powerful must that be for my health?
So it works both ways, you're saying. It's like the more you understand about a food item and its nutritional benefits and X, Y, and Z, the more that sort of plugs into your belief system and plugs into your kind of attitude towards that food, and then that benefits you because you're like, yeah, I know this is good. I know this is good because it's got these nutrients and it was grown organically and I bought it from the farmer's market and all of that. And at the same time, it can work the other way where it's like, oh no, Weetabix is bad because ultra processed food, and I've programmed myself to believe that this is bad. And it's interesting that you can have both sides of that coin. And then the third reality, which is that actually none of it is good or bad. It's what's the situation of my life right now? Like your situation this morning, you were busy. you had what you had around. You needed to eat something because that was gonna be a better choice than not eating something. And that is what people's lives are about, isn't it? It's they're dynamic. We all live in lives based on circumstance. We can change them, but at least in the present moment, we're in a predicament. We're in a situation. We might not have access to organic food right now, or we might be in a rush and only have two cafes to choose from. And it's like, I think the key point for me is people understanding that if they feel like they've only got a choice between two foods because they're at the train station, it's remembering that actually their state and their thoughts about that and their acceptance of their situation and their kindness to themselves, rather than, oh no, I should be eating this and I should be eating that, and I failed because I didn't manage to make myself a nice, healthy packed lunch. It's recognizing that they are influencing that whole what's going to happen when they eat and how it's going to affect them. It's like they are an influence on their health. And yeah, I think that's what it isn't taught in schools, is it? Or it's not taught when you go to see the doctor or anything like that, that kind of message.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, in our sort of choose your medicine thread that we have in True Health, like ultimately it's like realizing you are the medicine. You have, or at
yeah,
least you have that potential to be. And in my work, a lot of what I do is meeting someone where they're at. So working out what are this person's values and principles. And for them, a pharmaceutical is absolutely the right answer. Even
yeah,
people, actually, I've had people as well who I've tried to be more empowering and collaborative, and they're just like, "Oh my God, you're a shit doctor! Like you know, you need to be telling me why
yeah,
don't you know what you're talking about? Like, why are you asking me what I want? I want like a clear list. Do this,
yeah,
this, and this." Which can be
yeah,
very like culturally influenced, and fair enough.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I need to be able to recognize that. I don't want to push my values of collaboration and empowerment. But what's really important is for people to understand the consequences of their actions so that they
yeah,
can make autonomous choices. Because that's
yeah,
people aren't realizing a lot of the time is that
yeah,
actually they go to the doctors and they'll be given this one option of the pill, and actually they're not informed that this might cause impacts on their other organs or worse health down the line. So it's like,
yeah,
yes, that is an option for you, but let's open up your choices. And as I said, ultimately coming back to realizing that you can choose also to be the medicine yourself just through the very way
yeah,
you're showing up in the world, paying attention to your inner state. As I said, for me, this journey of becoming more and more heart led, I think so powerful because as I reconnect with my body, it so quickly tells me if something's not right. If if
hmm
if a food hasn't quite like avocados, like this is one of the top health foods. And sometimes for me, my body is like, don't you dare eat an avocado. It's like, and I would not have had that sensitivity before. Um,
Wow.
which is why I really, yeah, I think it's
For
really
you.
I mean, it had a stern voice, but no, it's much softer. It's more gentle. It's gentle. It's like, oh, that's the best choice for you right now. Yeah.
Something I know about you now. You can't eat avocados, or you
No,
can't at them. You
but then
can, but
the next week I crave an
yeah,
avocado,
mm,
right? So how I can't as a doctor be saying to that person, eat an avocado now if their internal system is telling them, actually, this
yeah,
is not right for me.
yeah,
And so it's like, how do we constantly come back to ourselves and assess what's right for me now? It's been a huge thing for me on my journey is actually reconnecting with the body and the wisdom that
yeah,
actually holds to communicate with us. Um, is that discernment as well as how much is a symptom a physical manifestation or is it more of an emotion?
yeah,
There is a complexity to it, and I think as our role as practitioners is how do we extract all that and make it simple, because so many people come to me in a very confused state. They're seeing so much online, what
hmm
works, what doesn't. So what would be your top tips for supporting someone to find clarity?
What came up for me as a response, and maybe something for someone to try, is to ask themselves that question: what if I had no information about health? What if I shut the laptop, switched off Instagram, not that you can switch off Instagram, but put the phone down. What would I do that I know is good for me right now if I had no information about health and I was just tuning into my own intuition and giving myself permission for the answer to be whatever the answer is. I think that approach speaks to the kind of start of the path is actually I don't need that information um, to start off with. Because the most important thing, like you say, is just trusting that I know something. I've kept myself alive for for X number of years. I've taken knowledge and information from my environment, but I've processed it in my own way, and I've taken actions to keep myself alive. Well, you might say, well, yeah, I'm alive, but I'm really struggling with some awful health conditions, so I can't have done. People can beat themselves up and be like, well, maybe I haven't done a great job. You've still got to ask yourself that question of what do I think? What do I think is good for me? What do I think feels good? And even if you get it wrong, see it as an experiment. Because ultimately there is no perfect protocol. I don't think ChatGPT is ever going to be able to prescribe a human being the perfect health protocol because everyone is different. Everyone's in a different environment, got different relationships. Life is dynamic. We make different choices moment to moment. Like you say, you might eat an avocado this week and not next week just because you feel different. Um, so it's got to start with yourself and asking yourself, what do I think? What do I think is going on? What do I think I should eat? What should I try today as an experiment and see what happens?
Yeah, it's maybe even asking yourself both, like giving the mind a say as well. Like, what do I
Yeah.
think? And write
Yeah.
everything that you think with your mind, and then what do
Yeah.
I feel? And also, I suppose the thing I think with the holistic consulting is there's this extra healing potential that comes from hearing options from someone that's lived it themselves, which is why
Yeah.
social media can be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Somebody has just gone for something, whether it's meditation or mitochondrial health or fasting, and they've gone for that one thing and they've really seen the benefits of that. Because when we see others that have, for example, with a 5 minute mile, when that barrier is broken and we've
Yeah.
seen other humans thrive from that thing, it increases the power of the belief of like, okay, that's possible for me too. Um,
Yeah.
so I think,
100%.
yeah, I think that's so important as the it is the power of the prescription pad. It's not that I'm just writing out a supplement. It's also my intention of may this supplement really help you heal. And even every
Yeah.
time you're taking it, you're subconsciously aware of, oh, I am supported. There's someone there that cares for me and wants me to get better and trust that I will with this protocol and approach.
Yeah. There's absolutely a time and place for that, isn't there? For trusting the wisdom and knowledge of someone like yourself that's trained deeply in different modalities and receiving that and receiving, yeah, like you say, a medicine and a prescription um, within a container of safety, within a container that they have the choice to take that or not take that. But obviously they've chosen to see you and they want to trust you. I think that's absolutely great. And at the same time, when they leave, when they go off and take that prescription for themselves in their own life, they leave the consultation. And I think a lot of people just think disease is random and it just happens. And why am I sick? I don't know, but it's just I've got this thing that I need to go and take to a professional to fix. But I think holistic medicine, integrative medicine is all about actually there's always a root cause. I mean, there's so much there's so many things we've covered in different directions. Um, there's so many angles we could go on with this. It's been really good
Exactly. And I
to
suppose to round it up then, if is there any like what if you reflect back on your own health journey, like what jumps
yeah.
out as like a real piece of wisdom that could be beneficial to share with people right now?
I think it's just recognizing your own power and influence on your health. And if you've got these ideas of right and wrong, good and bad, sometimes you just got to let yourself do the bad things which can reduce the resistance to then doing the good things. You've got to say that it's okay for all parts of you to want to go in different directions. Um, and in the long run, you're going to be doing things that are better for you because you want to feel better. I hope that makes
Yeah, it's
sense.
beautiful. I
But
love it. I mean, it really comes back to that principle we've touched on of self-kindness, self-compassion for all the
yeah.
different parts. And how can we let them all have a voice and just gently come back together and find then that pathway forward that becomes more aligned, that becomes easeful, flowing, effortless, and really does support our greatest health.
Mm. Can I ask a question to you?
Please.
If you or someone, one of your clients or anyone out there who could be listening to this feels very lonely and isolated and overwhelmed with what to do for their health and they're really suffering, they wanna find some solutions. Yeah, what would be something they could do as a first step?
This sounds a little bit placed. I'm like, I'm going to mention True Health Community. I know. If you do resonate with, if you feel some trust in Will and I, we do offer a community where we're getting people together just to come together like this and support each other and create that space. We're creating that container for people to heal in, essentially, where it's not just about the one-to-ones. It's how can we expand that out into your whole life, so that your whole life, that you're held within this container of people that are on a similar journey and seeing other people go through challenges. So many people are like, oh gosh, is it just me that's going through this? And yet I've seen 3, 4 different people that day that have said that they're going through similar things. Those simple shares where we're finding something challenging can be so inspiring for someone else. And it's even just if you have one person that you feel you're able to be completely yourself around,
Yeah.
that you don't need to force yourself into some role or other identity, then that can be truly healing. So it's finding that one person. And if that's not feeling like that's something that you have in your life right now, then I really do recommend reaching out to
Mm,
coaches like Will, absolutely, or find someone, as I said, that you resonate with them and their message.
totally. I
Great.
love that. Go to a safe place. We started this conversation talking about safety, and I would say for someone struggling, one piece of advice, go to a safe place.
Yeah.
Go somewhere in your childhood or somewhere you just that makes you feel safe, and then um, start from there.
Either in your mind or even, yeah, physically. But the mind, yeah, mind's so beautifully powerful. Closing your eyes and just imagining,
Mm,
say,
mm,
somewhere where you feel you can really unwind, let go. Speaking to someone recently, just the connection of trees, even just being out in nature, even when you don't feel you have that connection with a person. Some people can feel really, really
mm,
connected to nature or animals or to creative expression,
mm.
ways that we can find connection.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I don't know how you're going to edit this, but you can edit this out. But I just wanted to add, when you were talking about the true community,
Yeah.
I just want to say what I think is one of the amazing things about True Health and what we're creating. If you use the analogy of business and entrepreneurship at the moment in the world and how much that is out there on social media, people want to create businesses, get rich, all of this. And there's so many containers being created around that. And I personally think that doesn't exist for health. I think in the health world, you've got the traditional routes which are structured out and laid out, whatever healthcare system you have in your country, whether you have to pay for it or not. And then outside of that, you just have the wilderness. You have people struggling on their own. Okay, stuff's starting to emerge now, but I do think this idea of group guidance, of creating community around being on your journey from A to B in health. So everyone wants to create a different business, and it's the same with health. Everyone wants to create a different version of health for themselves, but we can all work and learn from each other and support each other. And I just think creating those containers in the health world is something really exciting and something I want to see more of, and I want to see more people feeling held and safe in the messiness and overwhelmingness of everything that is out there when it comes to health and in their own lives. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in as a kind of reflection on what we're trying to do with True Health.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Will. Yeah, it's been lovely speaking with you.